السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. When we look at the Islamic history, we see that the rise of Muslims that led the civilization in a period of 4 decades was based on Islam's emphasis on learning. This is obvious when someone takes a look at the Qur'an and the traditions of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, which are filled with references to learning, education, observation, and the use of reason and logic. The very first verse of the Qur'an revealed to the Prophet of Islam on one of the nights of Ramadan in 611 AD reads, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a cloth of congealed blood. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not, the things that the man did not know. Chapter 96, verses 1 through 5. Here, Qur'an starts its revelation with the word read, by which learning, education, and knowledge starts. It repeats it again in the 3rd verse. Then another instrument of learning and education, which is called pen, علم بالقلم, who taught by the pen, is mentioned. Today, a pen could be a computer keyboard or a printer or a voice recognition device, all of which relating to writing, a search engine that you type into to research. So from these verses, Qur'an starts with the 2 basic instruments of learning and education, which is reading and writing. For what? To gain knowledge. And verse 5 says, taught man that which he knew not, or knowledge he did not have. So the beginning of the last holy book, the last scripture, the final testament to mankind, which is the Qur'an, starts with learning and education. In another verse related to using aql, intellect, Qur'an says, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. And they shall say, had we but listened or used intellect, we would not be among the inmates of the burning fire. Chapter 67, verse 10. Regarding those with knowledge and those without, Qur'an says, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. This is a famous verse. Are those who have knowledge and those who have no knowledge alike? Only the men of understanding are mindful and take heed. Chapter 39, verse 9. And also, as Qur'an says, every Muslim's prayer, man or woman, should be وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. My Lord, enrich me with knowledge, increase my knowledge. Chapter 20, verse 114. Education is therefore the starting point of every human activity. Allah created man and provided him with the tools for acquiring knowledge, namely hearing, sight, and wisdom. Allah says, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لا تعلمون شيئا وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة لعلكم تشكرون. Allah has brought you out from the wombs of your mothers while you knew nothing, and He gave you hearing, sight, and hearts that you might give thanks to Allah. Chapter 16, verse 78. In another verse, Qur'an says, يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ درجات. Allah will raise in ranks those of you who believe and those who have been granted knowledge, ilm. Chapter 58, verse 11. The pursuit of knowledge and the use of reason based on sensory observation and analysis, of course using aql, intellect, are made obligatory on every Muslim man and Muslim woman. And there are narrations from the Prophet ﷺ that supplement the above teachings of the Qur'an, the verses, as the Prophet of Islam said, number 1, seek knowledge even though it be in China. The acquiring knowledge is obligatory. This is number 2. The acquiring knowledge is obligatory, or farida for every Muslim, whether male or female. Number 3, the ink of the scholar is more sacred than the blood of the martyr. Number 4, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Number 5, God has revealed to me, whoever walks in the pursuit of knowledge, I facilitate for him the way to heaven. Number 6, the best form of worship is pursuit of knowledge. Number 7, scholars should endeavor to spread knowledge and provide education to people who have been deprived of it. For where knowledge is hidden, it disappears. Number 8, someone asked the Prophet ﷺ, who is the biggest scholar? He replied, he who is constantly trying to learn from others. For a scholar is ever hungry for more knowledge. Number 9, seek for knowledge and wisdom, or whatever the vessel from which it flows. You will never be the loser. Number 10, thinking deep for 1 hour with sincerity is better than 7 years of worship. He means, mechanical worship. Number 11, worship without knowledge has no goodness in it, and knowledge without understanding has no goodness in it. Number 12, to listen to the words of the learned and to instill onto others the lessons of science is better than religious exercises. Number 13, acquire knowledge. It enables its seeker to distinguish right from wrong. It lights the way to heaven. It is our friend in the desert, our society in solitude, our companion when friendless. It guides us to happiness. It sustains us in misery. It is an ornament among friends and an armor against enemies. These are some of the sample narrations from the Messenger of God, peace be upon him. Of course, where it compares learning and knowledge to worship, it elevates learning and knowledge to level of worship and beyond. Because not only the right understanding and knowledge can benefit all humankind, it can help the seeker to get to know Allah, the Creator, better. Therefore, serve Him better and benefit humankind on the way. Plus, knowledge gives meaning to his worship. So when he performs the ritual acts of worship, he has much better understanding of his Creator because he has gotten to know Him better through learning and gaining knowledge about his creation. That is why Qur'an has many verses like قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ ثُمَّ اللَّهُ يُنْشِئُ النَّشْأَةَ آخِرَةً. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Say, travel through the land and see how He originated creation. So will Allah produce later creation. He will do the same again. For Allah has power over all things. Chapter 29, verse 20. Here, of course, travel and observation is not just a physical travel, because a non-believer can travel and see the same physical things. It is more like when you travel observing or seeing with eyes of your heart and mind, contemplating and gaining insight, discovering, researching, and developing. The Islamic Empire for several centuries remained the most advanced and civilized nation on earth. This is because Islam stressed the importance and respect for learning, forbade destruction, taught Muslims to respect the rule of law, that is, none was above the law. Islam taught them discipline and tolerance for other religions. The teachings of Qur'an and Sunnah drove many Muslims to their accomplishments in all facets of science and medicine. By the 10th century, their passion and enthusiasm for learning resulted in transferring all essential Greek medical and scientific writings that existed at the time to Arabic and brought to Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad, which were centers for learning and development. Arabic became the international language of learning and diplomacy. The center of scientific knowledge and activity shifted eastward, and Baghdad emerged as the capital of the scientific world. The Muslims became scientific innovators with originality and productivity. For example, Islamic medicine is one of the most famous and best known facets of Islamic civilization, and in which the Muslims most excelled. Muslims led the international scientific research. The first real hospital was established there. Some of the best and most eloquent praises of science ever written came from the pens of Muslim scientists who considered their work to be acts of worship. I repeat, some of the best and most eloquent praises of science ever written came from pens of Muslim scientists who considered their work to be acts of worship. The same motivation led to establishment of Al-Azhar in 970 AD, the first well-established and well-known university in the world. However, we know that there was another Muslim university of Qur'an founded in 859, which was some years earlier, AD, in Fez, Morocco, but not as well known. But these two universities were the first, if you want to call it that. If we go strictly by the dates, these are the two first universities. By the way, this university, Qur'an, was established by a Muslim lady called Fatima al-Fihri. So, European scientists have acknowledged that European medical system, and this is, I'm quoting, the European medical system is Arabian or Islamic based, not only in origin but also in its structure, as Muslims are the intellectual forebearers of the Europeans. If you read Pierre Rousseau's History of Science book, there's a book by the name of History of Science written by Pierre Rousseau. He talks about this in detail. Unfortunately, Muslims lost the lead as they distanced themselves from the above Islamic teachings. They became complacent and introverts, seeking, philosophical and mystic ideals rather than the real world objectives and discoveries that serve humanity. Europeans, on the other hand, took the torch of knowledge and learning and began to run with it as they took the lead in the scientific world and got light years ahead of Muslims in learning, knowledge, and innovation. What happened to Muslims in the societal level was that they became complacent and introvert. And this was in a national, or I would say in a ummah level. Some people say Europeans went after worldly things. We went after spirituality. That is absurd, illogical, and baseless. Firstly, you can be spiritual and intellectual with learning and knowledge, just like they did in early golden years. Secondly, Muslims in Muslim nations are consumers of the West's technological advances, from medicine to electronics to computing and internet and you name it. It is through these advances that they rule the world economically. And all these advances bring about economic power, which in turn, yes, makes them militarily superior as well. As cradle of knowledge, they have made so many discoveries and inventions as history has witnessed. All of this because of their thirst for learning and knowledge. You see, when a bestseller book comes out in a Muslim country in Middle East or Africa, perhaps tens of thousands copies gets sold. But in the West, when a bestseller comes out, you see millions of copies sold. While the first well-known public university was established in Egypt and, Morocco, today, there are over 4,200 universities and colleges just in the U.S. There are less than 500 in the entire Middle East. I saw some interesting stats a few years ago which explains their passion for learning. I mean, Westerners' passion for learning. According to 100 Years of Nobel Prize, which came out, this report, in 2005, a review of Nobel Prize candidates and winners, between 1901 and 2000, that's about 99 years, 65.4% of Nobel Prize honorees, 423, that means 423 prizes in all categories, not just peace category, but medicine, physics, chemistry, literature, economic science, etc., 423 prizes were given. And they were all from West and, Christians. The rest were from other faiths. As of 2015, 12 Nobel Prize candidates have been Muslims. 7 of the 12 honorees have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, just a Peace Prize. And you already know how many Jewish Nobel Prize winners we've had for the last 100 years. As of 2017, the latest, Nobel Prizes have been awarded to 892 individuals, of whom 201, or 22.5%, were Jews. Although the total Jewish population comprises less than 20 million of the world's total population, this means the percentage of Jewish Nobel honorees is at least 112.5 times or 11.25% above average. So these numbers tell us who has been in education and knowledge forefront. Now, fast forward into today, in the individual level, one of the secrets of success in any profession is to be the most learned or best informed person in one's own profession. Learning can be a joy. One should cultivate the enjoyment associated with learning on any subject of his passion. Although the pleasure of learning is universal, there are many dull, indifferent people in this world. This is because of several reasons. There are underlying reasons for this. Some people have become dull over a period of time due to bad teaching, isolation, and following a routine lifestyle. For some people, it is the pressure of hard work and poverty. For those who are rich, their momentary and trivial delights come in the way of the pleasure of learning. The human mind can survive not only poverty, but also even wealth with luck, determination, and guidance. Once the primary steps, the fundamentals, are not taught or taught properly, or not learned properly, the student hits the wall, and later in grades or later in college. So now either he's determined, and he spends the time, goes back to basics and removes the weak areas of understanding, the holes as they say, or just gives up and often gives up his whole education. So the primary steps we need to really think about, the fundamentals, when we're not taught properly or we didn't learn properly. And we need to identify those missing areas, those holes, before we hit the wall and give up on education. Take, for example, Archimedes, which we talked about in the past. When he discovered the principle of specific gravity by observing his own displacement of water in a bathtub, when he was in a bathtub, he realized it. He leaped out, he jumped out with great joy and shouted, "Eureka, Eureka, I have found it, I have found it." He was overwhelmed with joy. All children possess the same instinct and interest which prompted his, joy and outburst and gratification. When children build something or find out about something or even learn how to do certain things, they are overwhelmed with joy. So what are the, etiquettes? There are 6 etiquettes mentioned by Ibn Qayyum. These are: first, number 1, asking questions in a good manner. Second, remaining quiet and listening attentively. Third, understanding well. Fourth, memorizing, keeping to your heart. Fifth, teaching. And then the 6th is the fruit, acting upon the knowledge, putting it to work, and keeping it to its limits. Learning is a natural pleasure. This pleasure is inborn and instinctive. The pleasure of learning is one of the essential pleasures of the human race. Without learning, survival itself is threatened. Now, the process of learning starts right after birth, right after we're born. It is true that babies who can barely talk investigate problems with all the passion and excitement of an explorer, make discoveries with the passion and absorption of dedicated scientists. At the end of each successful investigation, one can see on their tiny faces an expression of innocent and pure heartfelt pleasure. They smile. The process of physical growth, however, babies as they're born start learning, but the process of physical growth stops when a boy or a girl reaches puberty. After puberty, the physical growth slows down, maybe few more inches on the height, but more on the width and the weight. They get wider and heavier. On the other hand, the mental faculties keep growing into old age. At some point in our lifetime, the physical body becomes sick or ill and gradually dies. Even the emotions become duller. But the mind continues to live and even grows more lively and active, enjoys itself more, works and plays with more delight. There are grandparents obtaining bachelor's or master's or PhD degrees at the age of 70, 80, or even 90. There are many examples in the history of art, music, and science of both men and women who significantly contributed and led mentally productive lives at their ripe old age. We see some grandmothers or grandfathers who have vivid memories and speak of events that occurred 70 or 80 years ago in their young age very clearly. Learning extends our lives into new dimensions. It is cumulative. Instead of diminishing in time like health and strength, its dividends goes on and on increasing, provided one continues to learn throughout life and, integrate learning into his life. I think, we should all make a point to learn at least one new piece of information every day, if not more. The pleasure of learning is not confined to learning from textbooks, which may often be considered tedious, but it does include learning from book magazines, periodicals, newspapers and documentaries, radio, ebook, internet. When you stand in front lobby of a big library looking at thousands of books on the shelf, do not think they are lumps of lifeless papers, but product of live minds on the shelves. Each has its own voice, which is inaudible as the radio broadcast waves falling directly on our ears are inaudible. One should hear it. If one wants to hear it, they have to switch on the radio. Same way, one just need to open a book to hear the voice far distant in time and space. You can hear the author's voice speaking mind to mind and heart to heart. Reading of books gives you two different delights. One is the pleasure of understanding the unknown and the unexpected. The other pleasure is of deepening one's knowledge of a specific field. Apart from books, learning means keeping the open mind and active to receive all kinds of experiences. As pointed out earlier, there is great emphasis on learning and seeking knowledge in Islam. The Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam ordered Muslims to be active in their search for learning, crossing oceans and continents if necessary. As he said, seek knowledge even in China. Everybody knows knowledge is power, but now we can say knowledge is wealth as well. For the more learned you are, the more financial rewards you can earn. There are many people in this world who have played and played themselves to death, or eaten and drunk themselves to death. But you know what? Nobody ever died because of too much learning, reflection, and knowledge. Before, people who avoid learning or abandon it find no joy in life, find that life is drained dry. No learner has ever run short of subjects to explore. The pleasures of learning leads to happiness. One can live longest and best and most rewardingly by attaining and preserving the happiness of learning. Learning is everyone's birthright. Everyone, young or old, rich or poor, male or female, has access to learning. Exercise your birthright. Remember, what you have learned cannot be taken away by anyone. I repeat, remember, what you have learned cannot be taken away by anyone. We will stop here and continue with another aspect of learning next time, inshallah, which we will be talking about knowledge from Quranic perspective. There are three types of knowledge. One is the knowledge about physical or natural science. Qur'an has many verses about physical and natural science, which we will investigate just a few. The second type of knowledge mentioned in Qur'an is knowledge about deen, faith, and divinity, which is different than that of physical or natural science. It is a knowledge gained by studying the Qur'an and Sunnah, the tradition of Prophet alayhi salam. The third type of knowledge mentioned in Qur'an is a knowledge of beyond or supernatural, one beyond the human perception and sensory, which starts with divine being, angels, the day of judgment, etc., etc. We will pick up on types of knowledge from Quranic perspective next time, inshallah. So stay tuned. We ask Allah to increase and enhance our knowledge and give us the passion to learn. We ask Allah to make us among the people of understanding, ulul albab. We ask Allah to strengthen our iman and understanding of our deen through learning His book, through tahqiq, not taqleed. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu ala man ittaba'a al huda.